Watanbe, brought to you by AfriCell.
Be part of the amazing conversations with Gambia's greatest minds and personalities. Get ready to be entertained, inspired, and motivated on the Watanbe platform. Plus, stand a chance of winning the shopping of your life. Call or SMS 1010 for $3 is only to win cash prizes and a free shopping spree.
Join Watanbe live on GRTS and social media on Mondays and Fridays at 9 p.m. Kylie New Watan.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow. Tired of seeing the message you have insufficient?
Hello and welcome to the Fortune Network. I am Sadio Brito, and of course I am here today with our editor-in-chief, Lamin Jai. We're coming to you live from the National Assembly of the Gambia as the President of the Republic and the Commander-in-Chief of the Gambia Armed Forces is ready to address the nation before the National Assembly and of course before the entire nation. Lamin, this might as well be one of the most important speeches that the President gives annually. Now this is part of his constitutional mandate, of course. It is in accordance with Section 77, subsection 1 of the 1997 Constitution and of course Clause 24 of the Standing Order of the National Assembly of the Gambia.
Thank you very much. Greetings to our viewers, wherever you may be watching us from. This is the Fortune Network, and as Sergio said, we're here at the National Assembly in Banjul for a live, comprehensive coverage of the SONA returns. This is the President is mandated under the Constitution of the Gambia to appear before parliamentarians at least once every year. To take them through his plans and policies. Right. So, I mean, this might as well be one of the most important SONAs since the President Adama Barrow became president. It is coming at a time when the country is battling the coronavirus pandemic there. So a very massive event, a very important event today here at the National Assembly. Sergeant.
This has been quite the year, I mean, not only for the President, but for the entire country, the world as a whole. We've been through the coronavirus pandemic. It's still not over. That's something we are fighting against, and I'm pretty sure that he has something to say about it, since the government has been heavily criticized on how they have actually handled the pandemic. We're looking forward to the other things that he has to say as far as his policies are concerned, and also the plans that he has for the upcoming year in his presidency.
So one would expect a statement there from the President to be a little different from what obtained in the past. What we have seen is that the usual mundane way of doing things. The President would just come and regurgitate what he had said the previous year. So this year we have this pandemic. We are in extraordinary times. One would expect the President's speech to center around the pandemic. One would expect him to come and fire up a nation that is out of sorts.
A nation that has lost hope, basically.
Exactly. A nation that is basically wading through a crisis. You know, what this pandemic has done is that it has affected almost every sector of the Gambian economy.
Absolutely.
So really, I mean, for example, the tourism sector has been ripped apart by this pandemic.
The most important as far as the economy of the Gambia is concerned at that.
Exactly. So this is what one would expect the President to do, to come to fire up a nation that is hopeless, to tell the nation that all right, everything is going to be fine, but also not just the assurance part, but also to tell the people what his government is really doing, to make it clear to the Gambian people what he is doing in terms of tackling this crisis there. So I think that is one of the things that one would expect
from this year's SONA
the President.
Yes. It's quite interesting that I would expect that once he delivers his speech, that MPs will have the opportunity to actually put questions to him, but that's not the case in the Gambia. Once the President delivers the SONA address, that's it, and then the MPs come back at another day to dissect everything that he has said.
Very well. I see the Honorable Minister of Health there, one of the most busiest ministers these days. But yes, that is how it is done in this country. The fact that the President will just come and then make his speech and then leave, and then the MPs will choose another day to come and then dissect his speech. So really, it would have made more sense if, for example, the members of Parliament had that opportunity to throw questions at the President, and for the President to answer back, to tell them what they really want to hear, because these speeches are beautifully crafted, they are beautifully written and given to the president, and the president comes. Maybe this is not really what the MPs want, because these are representatives of the people. Their people sent them to this house to be here to look after their interest. Maybe what their people want to hear from the president is not what the president is coming here to say. So this is very important, but unfortunately that's not the case in this country.
That's very unfortunate. It would have been better if the members of parliament had the opportunity to actually ask the president some questions. Now that's Honorable Khalifa Sallah there, a National Assembly member of Combo.
Yes, he has also just arrived, and I think I have seen another MP that is also passing. If he can just throw a word there, I'll just ask Saja to get
Have a seat, please, and tell us who you are, please, our viewers.
Well, I think I am Honorable Sekumoro. I'm the National Assembly member for Latrikunda Savage.
What are you looking forward to today?
Well, we are looking forward to for the president to come and tell us the program and the policies of the government as we stand right now for this year. That is from the year 2020. This is what we are expecting. So that's what we are looking for.
You've been here in the past SONA addresses, and a lot of people say it's most of the time a repetition of things that he's said before. What are the key things that you are expecting to hear from the president today?
Well, there's a lot of areas that we are looking forward to, like in the area of the health sector, because we all know what has happened. This pandemic, what is some of the achievements that they've registered during this period, and then also what is their future, what is their plan ahead? Because we all know what's happening in this COVID-19, the plan that the government have, so that we can prevent. If such should happen again, it will be easy to deal with it in a more appropriate manner and a time. So we're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to the agricultural sector also as well, because this is a key area. It is a productive area that we're looking at, and also the youth empowerment sector also we're looking at as well. These are key issues that I'm really looking forward to in this SONA. That's the State of National Address today.
Obviously, you've talked about the health sector, and it is no doubt clear that the coronavirus pandemic has hit all sectors of the Gambian economy. How do you feel about the way government handled this entire crisis, or is handling this crisis?
Well, I can, because as I used to say sometimes, yes, governments, they're doing their utmost best, but to me, it is not that, it is not enough. Because I keep saying this one, the COVID-19, no country was prepared to face it. It came at a time that no country was prepared to face it. So this is why we are looking forward to the future plan of the government. In case we have such scenarios here, what will government do to tackle it? So right now, that's my main concern.
And of course, talking about the tourism sector again, another key important sector as far as the economy of the Gambia is concerned. We have seen the tourism minister come out to say that they're opening up the tourism season in October, which is next month. But alongside it, we've also seen other controversies, particularly the airport levy that the Gambia Civil Aviation has come up with. What is your opinion on that?
Well, to be quite honest to you, I am not in support of the airport levy, because I don't expect, we are just opening up to the tourism season, so I don't expect those charges to be, I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not really in support of that $20, it's a $20 departure and 20 arrival. I am not in support of that one, that area that the civic aviation is coming up with, because this is an area. This is a no-go area for me, because there is no way that I am going to support that one.
Why are you against it? Are you worried about the usage, the accountability part of it?
Let's just understand that we just from a pandemic. That the tourism system has been closed down since back in January, I don't know, February. So we are trying to attract the tourists to come to the country. So we have to know what to do in order to attract them. So putting such charges just right now might affect the upcoming tourist season. So I see at this moment it should not be.
This is not the time for it, basically. This is not the time for it,
So that is my take on this.
Thank you very much, there. Thank you very much for that wonderful interview. Seems like we have another guest. Welcome to the Fatu Network.
Yes,
can you please tell our viewers who you are?
Thank you very much. My name is Honorable Alhajimbo. I'm the Member of Parliament for Upper Salem District.
You're welcome, Honorable. Honorable, what are you looking forward to most today?
Well, what I'm looking forward to, which is basically the latest updates on the pandemic that's actually that has hampered the country economically, socially, and even politically, we may say. So I'm really looking forward to hearing really from the president the situation where we are right now and what are the next steps that we need to take as a nation. Because the economy, the socially, we've actually been affected, and even psychologically also the country actually has been affected. So what I'm hearing forward to is to hear from the president really, as far as the pandemic is concerned, really where are we and what are the next steps? Because of really, we really need to move forward. And looking at the numbers as we've seen for the past few days, I'm really very encouraged. But really, we want to hear from the experts on like on the way forward. And the second part is about the economy. Again, as a country, we've seen how our economy is. We have a tax-based economy, and most of the revenue we actually have as a government actually depends largely on taxes. And we need to really know where exactly are we. And then maybe in the next few months, what do we need to do as a nation just to ensure that the economy of this country is put right back on track?
Now, it seems like the emphasis today from at least the people I've spoken to, everybody wants to hear clearly what the president has in store as far as the coronavirus pandemic is concerned. Now, he has said, he's come out several times, so it seems we have other guests. That's Honorable Lawyer Adama there, the Secretary General and party leader of the United Democratic Party arriving today. Now, back to the conversation. How do you feel about the way the government of the Gambia handled the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, I think the Gambia, compared to other countries, actually is really, this is not something that's very, very novel in the Gambia. This pandemic, in fact, if you look at it in totality, actually, even the best nations or the biggest nations, the nations with the highest economic earnings, for example, they've been hit hard. There is not even a single nation that you can count in the entire world that actually has not suffered as a result of the pandemic. It has, if I may say, it has exposed the fragility of the health sector across the world, and Gambia is no exception. So, and I think as a country, it has actually also exposed us the need for us to rebuild our infrastructure as far as the health sector is concerned. It has also shown that there is a need to have more professionals in the industry, in the health as far as that is concerned. We need to also nurture our own people to be able to take care of our own in case of things we have these pandemics or we have epidemics in this country. I think in general, it has shown that we as a nation, we've been really very weak in terms of health infrastructure and also the amount of health profession that we really need in this country. It has
Thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And still on the coverage, guys, it seems like we still have dignitaries arriving. There was just the arrival of Honorable Lawyer Usain Dabo, the Secretary General and Party Leader of the United Democratic Party. Lamin.
Thank you very much, Sajo. So this is the SONA, that's the State of the Nation address there. Any moment from now, the President of the Republic should arrive. Yeah, because he should be here by 10 a.m. So by which time, the usual ceremonies, arrival ceremonies of a guard of honor will take place, after which he will enter the National Assembly chambers and the event will start proper. But this year's event, Sergio, has been subdued. The ceremony would not, or the event would not be like what obtained in the past. It will not be that elaborate because of the coronavirus pandemic. National Assembly, what it has done is that it has made sure that the number of people that
there are
restrictions as to the amount of the people that are allowed to enter the National Assembly. So that is, I can see political leaders coming in. I can see Gambia Action Party officials here. I can see GMC officials. I can see the Honorable Usain Dabo, who is the leader of the United Democratic Party. But also we also saw ministers. Almost all the country's ministers.
All of them. We've seen
are here. We've seen the former Vice President.
Yes, Famata Tambajang.
So these are all coming, and then they will all be listening to the president, what the president has to say this year regarding his plans and policies there. So it is the president's duty really to come here to tell members of the National Assembly what he has for the country. So basically that is what is happening. Like I said earlier, I mean, it's not going to be an elaborate event as such because of the coronavirus pandemic, and one would expect the president to come and speak around the coronavirus pandemic. So you can see live pictures there.
Yes, it seems like we are witnessing the arrival of the president, His Excellency President Adama Barrow.
So you can see that those are live pictures outside of the parliament there. So the president has arrived.
Yes, it seems they are doing the usual military
yes, so you can
parade.
see there, it is very unusual. This is very strange. This is not how it is done. Last year I was
It used to be a lot bigger than this.
A lot bigger than this. So, but this year it is a very small event, small guard of honor there.
And I'm pretty sure it's not going to take long, as the president it's just going to deliver the speech and then get it over with.
Exactly. So that's the president there taking the guard of honor. As we welcome our viewers in the country and beyond, this is the Fatu Network, and we are here at the National Assembly for a special broadcast
bringing
of
you
the
State of the Nation Address 2020.
And also, Sergio, this year's event is coming at a very important juncture in our history.
This is timely.
This is timely because this is happening at a time when the country is trying to move into a new republic. Some would say call it the Third Republic. The draft constitution, yesterday we saw it being debated by members of the National Assembly. The debate, of course, will continue sometime next week, but today the president is coming to speak, really. And this year's event really is coming when we are heading into elections. So next year is election year, and we have a referendum that is looming. If this draft constitution passes, if the bill is promoted, that's something huge. That's something huge. But also this year's event, where we would like the president to come and also talk about the sectors, really. The sectors, how the coronavirus pandemic, how it has affected the various sectors of our economy. Because we have seen even the reform agenda, the president would be expected to speak along those lines. What the state of the reform agenda, the reform process. We have seen what the pandemic has done. For example, the TRRC, it has stopped working. Well, maybe they are doing some peripheral work, but they have stopped their public sessions. So this is the tourism sector. So you can see inside the National Assembly, almost all the
MPs are seated.
Have taken their seats.
And the ministers as well. I mean, like you said, this is why when you say this year's event is not elaborate, perhaps that's to do with the shenanigans and everything behind the scenes. But I in fact expect the speech of the president to be very elaborate, because this year has been a very special year. So many events have taken place in the country. So I expect him to speak along the lines of so many things: the constitution, the security sector reform, and everything, the economy, the tourism sector. So I expect his speech to be at least elaborate.
Yeah, one would expect, like I said, one would expect this speech to be interesting. It shouldn't be the business as usual, that mundane, humdrum kind of a speech. You just come and then
read something and then
vomit what you told us last year. We want something, different, something unique. And this, like I said, these are extraordinary times. The president can come here and do a pretty good job in really, really going into almost everything that is important, that Gambians want to hear. So this is what is important. So you can see live pictures there. Outside of the parliament, I can see, is that the speaker that is taking? Yeah, the president and the speaker. The arrival of the president
that's the arrival
and the speaker.
of the president and the speaker of the National Assembly.
The National Assembly there, inside the chamber.
I mean, it's also good to see that we have the opposition party leaders present here today, and I'm sure it will be very good to talk to them after the president delivers his speech. I remember Dr. Ismail Assisa said it's easy every time that the president says something, every time he puts out his policies and his plans, it's easy for the opposition parties to come out and to criticize and to say this is not the way, it should not be done. And then he said it is time for the opposition parties to be alternative party. Like, it doesn't always have to be criticism, but what do you have to also bring to the table to make sure that this country is moved forward? So it's good to see that we have the opposition party leaders, and we hope to speak to some of them immediately after the president delivers his speech.
Sergio, right. I mean, I think Dr. Ismail Assisa is right there in his view, because I mean, it doesn't have to be criticism for the sake of criticizing. But you have to do it constructively when it's necessary. But not also that. You also, because when one criticizes, then there's a problem. Right. What do you have? what solution would you prefer? I think those are the things that really would matter when you are in the opposition. When you are an opposition leader, you have to also be somebody who has a different idea to a problem. So Dr. Ismail Assisa, in his view there, I think to a greater extent is right. But I think business is coming to start inside the chamber.
Let's take
so
you guys inside the chambers of the National Assembly.
I think we have a sound coming from inside of the chamber.
Yes.
Dear Mr. Adama Barrow, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, Your Excellencies, former Vice Presidents, my Lord, the Chief Justice of the Gambia, Honorable former Speakers, Honorable Members of the National Assembly, here in present, Honorable Ministers, Lord Mayors and Regional Governors, leaders of political parties, service chiefs, permanent secretaries, managing directors, venerable religious leaders, distinguished invited guests, the press and protocol, all other protocols respectfully and duly observed. Good morning to you all. Honorable members, in accordance with Section 77(1) of the 1997 Constitution and Clause 24(1) of the Standing Orders, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Mr. Adama Barrow, is here today to attend and address this sitting of the National Assembly on the condition of the Gambia, the policies of government, and the administration of the state. On behalf of both sides of the Assembly, I wish to extend a warm welcome to His Excellency, the President of the National Assembly. Honorable members, His Excellency's presence in this August Assembly today is significant in our parliamentary calendar, as it will enable honorable members of the legislature to have the opportunity to hear from the head of the executive, that is His Excellency the President, on the condition of the Gambia, the policies of the government, and the administration of the state. Honorable members, this year marks His Excellency the President's 4th State of the Nation address to the 5th legislature since the inception of the new democratic dispensation. Traditionally, this particular session of the Assembly attracts Gambians and people from all walks of life. However, this year's State of the Nation address is being conducted in a very unusual manner, since we are living in extraordinary times. I have acted in good faith and conscience to invoke Section 98(2) of the 1997 Constitution and Clause 11(4) of the Standing Orders of the National Assembly to restrict the admission of strangers into the public gallery, in line with the general principles of public gathering regulations amid COVID-19. And once again, I wish to welcome His Excellency the President to the National Assembly in fulfillment of his constitutional mandate. Your Excellency, thank you, and you're welcome. Clerk. Thank you very much. Honorable members, distinguished invited guests, I have the singular honor and privilege to invite His Excellency, President Adama Barrow, to deliver his address. Thank you so much.
Honorable Speaker, Yes. Can you ask the President to put on the face mask, since it's the rules of the Parliament?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Test it. It's not working. Wait. Cheers. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Your Excellency, the Vice President, Madam Speaker, my Lord, the Chief Justice, Honorable Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service, Honorable Cabinet Members, Honorable Members of the National Assembly, Lord Mayor of Banjul, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, honorable religious leaders, service chiefs, senior government officials, members of the media, fellow Gambians, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it is my honor and pleasure to deliver this annual address to the honorable members of this august assembly. On my government's performance during the course of the last legislative year. Today, my address presents the successes and challenges of a country that was on a steep rise towards economic boom and socio-political transformation when the unexpected struck. This was the sudden outbreak and rapid spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19. It is an address which attempts to duly highlight my government's achievements and the ever-increasing devastation and impact of the pandemic on the economy and life in the Gambia. It is also an address which should be appreciated within the context of a unique global pandemic and a crisis of tragic consequences. The address highlights a calamity that has dwindled resources, disrupted plans and schedules, and shattered hopes and expectations. This is a crisis that has taken the world by storm and remains a threat to all nations, rich and poor, big and small. In the Gambia, the momentum and expectations for rapid progress were evidently very high. Major development projects and achievements closely followed one another. Our support and resources were sought and tapped from various sources. The people were politically excited, and my government was optimistic of delivering on our promise of leading the nation to unprecedented economic growth and social regeneration in a democratic haven for all Gambians. Unfortunately, like other nations, we had to curtail certain economic activities, restrict movement, scale down work schedules, and finally declare a state of emergency. Economically, key revenue earning institutions have since been crippled, people grounded, and communities adversely affected. Examples will be cited in my address to show the extent of the impact of the pandemic on the economy and social life, and to indicate its implications on the 2018-2021 National Development Plan, NDP, and therefore on our national goals and objectives. Details on sector activities specific to the pandemic will not, however, feature much. The loss of revenue, operational setbacks, and missed targets and opportunities are too obvious to require repetition in each sector report. Let me observe that, important as our development achievements may be, the pandemic and its impact are uniquely more urgent and consequently require utmost attention. As a result, I will focus on the pandemic, hopeful that many of my government's infrastructural, legal, institutional, and other development successes have been reported widely on the media and other forms of news outlets. Nevertheless, prompted by the National Constitution, I am obliged to officially report on my government's performance during the course of the last legislative year. Against this background, concise reports on the various sectors follow. I will begin with the finance and economic affairs sector, as our development strength is derived from it. Finance and economic affairs, Madam Speaker. The Gambia has been experiencing a slowdown of economic growth due to the reduction of economic activities as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. An initial analysis shows that GDP growth rates this year could decline from 6% to 2%. The decline in import volumes and economic activities will correspondingly lead to shortfalls in import duties and other tax revenues. Based on the current situation, an estimated 20% of expected revenue will be lost. The total estimated fiscal impact from the decline in import duties and other tax revenues is $2.3 billion. That is 2.4% of GDP. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs projects that the fiscal deficit will widen from 1.5% of GDP to 2.1% of GDP. The pandemic has negatively impacted on budget execution as approved by the National Assembly. The government had to resort to cuts and reallocation of funds from line items such as travel, training, and workshops into much needed areas. These decisions were taken to set aside $500 million as emergency funds to cater for prevention, containment, and respond to the pandemic. Certain budgets line expenditures have been reallocated to the Ministry of Health for COVID-19 related expenditures. This decision has affected almost all ministries, departments and agencies. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs was forced to make further budget cuts in the face of declining revenue in recent months and the expected loss of revenue for the rest of the year. With declining revenues and the need to provide humanitarian assistance and support businesses during this period of economic downturn, government is faced with a challenging task for the coming months. The COVID-19 pandemic will continue to have a significant socio-economic impact on the economy, both directly and indirectly. Directly through the effects of the disease on production, investment and trade within the country and between the Gambia and the rest of the world. Indirectly, the impact will be felt through the slowing of global economic growth, supply chain disruptions, and by extension negatively impacting the Gambia's growth prospects. There is an imminent threat of a global recession arising from the pandemic, and the extent of this impact is yet to be fully determined. No matter what the impact will be, government has already devised post-pandemic plans to protect lives and livelihoods. Interior, Madam Speaker, in collaboration with other services, the Gambia Police Force has increased engagement in community and border patrols. However, border enforcement activities on irregular migrants and perpetrators of transnational organized crimes, such as trafficking and smuggling, have been constrained due to the advent of COVID-19. To compound the challenges, key components of the ongoing security sector reform, namely the third phase of the German support training program and the institutional policy drafting process, have been halted. With regard to revenue earnings, in 2019, the Immigration Department generated $139,672,840. However, it is predicted that collection for 2020 is likely to drop severely due to the pandemic. Similarly, production and issuance of national identity cards, biometric passports, and other official documents were postponed. The result was a huge loss of revenue for the sector. The Prisons Department has not been spared, especially in connection with training on life skills and rehabilitation programs for the adult inmates. These programs are important for the effective reintegration of prisoners after their discharge from prison. Furthermore, due to the prevailing situation, staff of various sections, such as firefighters, had to be redeployed as frontline officers for COVID-19 intervention exercises countrywide. This has created capacity gaps in the execution of other duties and program implementation. Construction works, for example, and expansion of service programs have ceased until further notice. The Drug Law Enforcement Agency is facing serious challenges arising from the pandemic. They have limited operational capacity, and this could increase the rate of undetected drug abuse. Prison decongestion as a response measure to contain COVID-19 has compelled the release on bail of most remand prisoners, as well as the pardoning of some convicts. In addition, court hearings were initially suspended to avoid an overcrowded remand week. Defense, Madam Speaker. The Gambia depends on the armed and security forces to protect the sovereignty of the nation, while maintaining peace, security, and stability in the country. In responding to the call to duty, the Gambia Navy has intensified routine sea patrols to enforce the law and ensure the security of our borders and the territorial integrity of the nation. Besides their routine work, the armed forces have been actively involved in civil duties that include collaboration with other services and agencies to secure and distribute relief food items countrywide. In addition, their ordnance unit has been producing face masks to protect troops against coronavirus infection. We are proud that the Forces Public Relations Department produced a COVID-19 sensitization video that won an international award from the Global Youth Leaders Network in South Africa. At present, some medical service personnel of the armed forces have been deployed to public health emergency centers to support frontline health workers. We appreciate their sacrifice. Office of the Vice President, Madam Speaker. The Office of the Vice President has a number of institutions under its purview. I will begin with the National Nutrition Agency, NAN, and like all other sectors, my address will leave out details on COVID-19. As contained in the validated National Nutrition Policy 2018-2025, NANA continues to pursue the goal of attaining optimal nutritional requirements for the Gambian population. The objective is to safeguard healthy and sustainable livelihoods and to render the Gambia free from malnutrition. There are major achievements during the year under review, include drafting of a Nutrition Bill 2020 and implementation of the $31 million Social Safety Net project. Funded by the government of the Gambia and the World Bank, NANA is implementing this project in collaboration with other stakeholders. The project targets rural households in the West Coast, North Bank, Central River, Upper River, and Lower River regions. The objective is to improve the coordination of activities and provide temporary social assistance. In the context of COVID-19, the project aims to provide a quick response support, NANA Quick, NAFA Quick, to approximately 80,000 households with a 4-month cash transfer of $1,500 per month in 30 districts. In addition, the EU, through UNICEF, supported the agency with funding to provide a one-off payment of $1,500 to 5,951 beneficiaries, representing about 99% of the targeted 6,000 beneficiaries of the BREST project. The support is to contribute to the food and nutrition security of children of the former BREST beneficiaries. Madam Speaker, apart from other duties, the National Disaster Management Agency, NDMA, has been involved in coordinating my government's food assistance for over 84% of households in the country. The distribution was successfully completed as planned. Together with other stakeholders, the NDMA has developed a roadmap for post-COVID-19 on building resilience in the 4 key areas of health response: social protection, socio-economic recovery mechanism, and the rule of law. As regards this rainy season, the NDMA has engaged stakeholders and UN partners to respond to any disaster. Environment, climate change, and natural resources. Madam Speaker, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the management, protection, and conservation of our environment and natural resources, which involves addressing the threats of climate change, have been major priorities of my government. As the environment and natural resources continue to depreciate, we are determined to reduce the high dependency on them and prevent their destruction and depletion, respectively. The implementation of the large-scale ecosystem-based adaptation EVA project, which is a $25 million project funded by the Green Climate Fund through the United Nations Environment Program, is ongoing. EVA is aimed at restoring degraded forests and agricultural landscapes with climate resilience plant species that provide goods for consumption or sale. It also seeks to facilitate commercially viable natural resource-based businesses to be managed by community-based organizations. In the area of renewable energy supply, to improve national electricity supply, the ONVG energy project is at an advanced stage. Work on the 2 substations is near completion, and the installation of electric poles in project areas is progressing steadily. As waste management presents a major environment challenge for the country, the Waste Management Bill is under review to deal with waste issues. Trade, industry, regional integration, and employment. Madam Speaker, honorable members, government through the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, and Employment is delegated to improving the business environment, promoting private sector investment, and supporting small and medium enterprises, SMEs. The purpose is to develop trade and create employment openings, in addition to strengthening bilateral and multilateral cooperation within the context of private sector development as an engine of economic growth. The Ministry has now completed the review of the Labour Act 2007, and a draft bill has been developed. The bill seeks to strengthen industrial relations in the country by ensuring the efficient functioning of the labour market. Currently, the sector is building an employment service center to facilitate linkages between job seekers and employers. The construction works of the center commenced in 2019 and are due for completion this year. Earlier in the year, the Ministry completed the framework for bread regulation to enforce the Essential Commodities Act. This relates to the production and distribution of quality bread in the country. The regulation was signed and gazetted in February 2020. Through GAIPA and support from the Commonwealth Secretariat, the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment has begun reviewing the National Export Strategy 2013. The activity began in October 2019, and completion of the new National Export Strategy 2020-2024 is expected to end soon. The review of the National Employment Policy and its action plan is complete, and a validated draft policy and action plan are near finalization. Madam Speaker, in the area of investment promotion, the government has amended the GAIPA Act 2015 to maximize public engagement and benefits in key priority sectors. The Amendment Acts will now help to widen the scope of domestic taxes and reduce over-reliance on trade taxes. In an order development, government is strengthening collaboration with the private sector through the National Business Council, which is now fully operational. The Council has adopted an action plan to implement short and medium-term key business climate reform measures. These measures are implemented and monitored by the Doing Business Task Force established in 2019. The reform is modeled to strengthen the private sector by improving business conditions and removing barriers to competitive job-creating industries. Besides policy reform, GAIPA is devoted to furthering investment promotion programs to attract private sector investment into the Gambia. In the last 2 quarters of 2019, 4 special investment certificates SIC were issued. They have a combined investment potential of $28,810,000 US and a combined employment potential of over 500 workers. On small and medium enterprises and entrepreneurship development through the Entrepreneurship and Private Sector Development Project, capacity building has been intensified for youth and women entrepreneurs. 270 youth have been trained on marketable skills, and 144 persons were trained to improve their entrepreneurial skills. Concurrently, the sector is working with 80 trade companies to support women to improve their production capacity and the quality and packaging of their products. The Youth Empowerment Project and TechIFI remain very useful in supporting SMEs and youth development initiatives. In 2019, a total of 85 SMEs, 213 youth, and 116 entrepreneurs were supported. The YEP project was able to create 928 new jobs, and 132 jobs were sustained. Currently, 3 grants, namely YEP Mini Grant, TechIFI Solar Grant, and the Agro Grant, continue to provide financial support to young entrepreneurs. Madam Speaker, at the regional level, the Gambia maintains its position to participate effectively in the African Continental Free Trade Area negotiations following its adoption in May 2019. Negotiations at the ECOWAS level to agree on the service and exclusive list in the trade in goods negotiations are almost complete. Trade in services negotiations under the AFCFTA started in 2019. However, they have been suspended due to the threat posed by the pandemic. The Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment led the national consultations and drafted the Gambia schedules of specific commitments for the services negotiations. The draft schedules have been shared with ECOWAS for arrangements to prepare the ECOWAS requests and offers in these areas. A quick assessment conducted by the Ministry in partnership with the Gambia Bureau of Statistics on the labor market reveals that job loss is estimated at 52,752 employed people in both formal and informal sectors as a result of the lockdown. This will worsen the already high unemployment rate of 35.2% as reported in 2018. The Entrepreneurship and Private Sector Development Project funded by UNDP has equally directed a significant sum of its allocated budget to the fight against COVID-19. These targets for investment promotion will be constrained this year. Foreign affairs, international cooperation, and Gambians abroad. Madam Speaker, as expected, the pandemic has adversely impacted on the foreign service operations of the Gambia. Similar to other sectors, part of the funds allocated for program implementation in the foreign service sector was diverted, resulting in the inability to implement some of the programs that were approved. The pandemic coincided with my government's decision to downsize the foreign service through the closure of some diplomatic missions and recall of diplomatic personnel on the basis of executing a staff-monitored program. As a result of the global lockdown, The exercise has been stalled. This has negative financial implications for government. To complicate matters further, development cooperation activities at the international level have been disrupted. Joint commissions with bilateral partners and major international conferences scheduled for 2020 have been postponed. Agreed programs with partners and the volume of assistance expected from development partners could not materialize as planned. In short, funds for development cooperation were diverted to national emergency funds to combat the pandemic. Lands, regional government, NGO, and religious affairs, Madam Speaker. The conflict over land and natural resources, LNR, project has been put on hold by FAO. This project is meant to strengthen the legal framework for land and natural resource-related conflict resolution and governance. It is designed as well to enhance mechanisms for conflict prevention in communities where land and natural resource-related violence has occurred, and to support peace-building efforts. The manual for land and natural resources have already been developed. I will seize this opportunity to stress that recent land ownership conflicts stirred by individual interests have been noted by my government. Having inherited most of them, I reassure those affected that my government is working to ensure that the rule of law and justice prevail. The ultimate goal is to sustain peace so that we can focus on development and live together peacefully. Madam Speaker, economic activities within this sector have decreased. As a result, revenue collection has reduced, whereas, for example, from January to March 2020, 8,148,143 was realized, representing a monthly average of $2,716,047. The figures dropped during the COVID-19 period. The Department of Community Development under the Ministry of Lands is now implementing participatory, demand-driven community development strategies to enhance decentralized structures and support community-based organizations. All these initiatives are geared towards reducing poverty and facilitating sustainable socio-economic development for all. To this end, plans are on the way to present the NGO bill before this August body. Madam Speaker, honorable members, in spite of all the challenges relative to the pandemic, the ministry signed an MOU with Helping Hand Foundation in Belgium to provide funding of about $5 million for over 20 communities and capacity building training on management and enterprise development. On the other hand, the 2020 challenge, which was expected to generate over $10 million, has been cancelled. This has blocked the implementation of community projects valued at $10 million. Responding to the need of out-of-school youth, support is provided for women and youth to acquire life and livelihood skills. The aim is to expand employment opportunities for them. The recently launched ecosystem-based adaptation project will further support this initiative in LRR, CRR, and URR. Unfortunately, the skills and capacity building training for a target group of 5,000 youth and women has been stalled. A total of over $2.5 million has been lost by these entrepreneurs due to the lockdown. To end on a positive note, the Department of Community Development has initiated the formulation of a national community development policy. Agriculture, Madam Speaker. The Ministry of Agriculture is one of the most important sectors in the country, as many Gambians are either occupational farmers or depend on farming for subsistence. To increase production, therefore, the Ministry of Agriculture has been active in policy development and program implementation. To cite examples, it has developed a National Agricultural Extension Policy 2019 to promote production and value addition, value chain development, strengthening the agricultural extension system, and building partnerships. Among other instruments that drive agricultural service delivery is the National Horticulture Sector Strategy, which supports the objectives of modernizing agriculture in the Gambia. A Cooperative Policy 2019 to revitalize cooperative principles and values has now been conceived. Likewise, a bill on plant health protection has been initiated to support the establishment of a modern plant protection organization. Parallel to this is the Animal Health Bill 2020, prepared to effectively regulate veterinary services in the country. In its transformation process, the ministry also prioritizes small ruminant improvement and the control and eradication of pests. With reference to inputs, 11,000 metric tons of fertilizer are available for sale, while 50 metric tons of groundnut seeds have been provided to farmers on loan, repayable from their produce. As additional support, varieties of certified seeds have also been distributed to them. Furthermore, after 23 years, arrangements have been finalized to revive cotton production in the country, with assurance of a market in Senegal. In preparation for the 2020 rainy season, government distributed various items of machinery and equipment to our farmers nationwide. They include a good number of tractors, power tillers, milling machines, pumping machines, and other agricultural inputs. With the support of the National Assembly, especially its Select Committee on Agriculture, an extra $100 million has been budgeted for farming implements, equipments, disease control mechanism, livestock, poultry production, and seed production, among other interventions. It is a welcome development that an emergency response plan has been set in motion in collaboration with the World Bank, with the World Food Programme. About 22,073 highly vulnerable households and roughly 69,499 food insecure households will benefit from these arrangements. Still on development in this sector, the Ministry of Agriculture is encouraging private business enterprises. Plans are afoot, for instance, to grant Marrow Farms a revolving fund of $10 million as microfinance to boost production. Marrow Farms is already active in the Pachar fields. Having validated the second Gambia National Investment Program, this year the ministry plans to build facilities across the country to reduce post-harvest losses. We are thankful to the Chinese and the Japanese governments, together with all our development partners, for supporting the sector. Petroleum and energy, Madam Speaker. The uncertainty caused by COVID-19 pandemic has led to the suspension of the planned drilling exploration by FAR Petronas. Hence, drilling has been rescheduled from end of the year 2020 to 2021. Similarly, British Petroleum's drilling activities will commence in 2021. Due to low demand, the prices of petroleum products are falling. To mitigate the anticipated impact, my government has ensured that both heavy and light fuel will be made available countrywide. Through the ongoing structural and legislative reform, government will table a bill to create an autonomous petroleum commission to further strengthen the regulatory landscape and guarantee regulatory independence for the upstream activities of the sector. Madam Speaker, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in collaboration with our partners, the government have undertaken a number of important projects and programs in this sector, which has been hampered by the pandemic. These include the National Electricity Access Project, the ECOWAS and AFDB supported projects, 1,100 schools and health facilities solar project, and the renewable energy and energy efficiency installation project, among others. The mining sector is a driving force for employment and availability of raw materials for the construction industry. Nonetheless, we have been mindful of regulating it. Based on the regulations for precious materials, 5 special mining licenses have been granted. To avoid depleting our sand resources, licenses are now issued for inland sand mining. Exploration of sand offshore is being considered. These issues will be captured in the proposed minerals and mining policy that will be developed and tabled before this August Assembly. Fisheries and water resources, Madam Speaker. Fisheries is a key revenue earner for the Gambia. I am happy to report that from September 2019 to date, the sector generated total revenue of $178,710,608 from industrial fishing operations. This was earned through the EU-Gambian Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Agreement, fishing license, fines and fish landings. During the period under review, the industrial fisheries subsector created employment for 1,036 Gambian youth, mainly as fisheries observers and deckhands on board industrial fishing vessels. To reduce the economic impact of the pandemic on small-scale operators in the fishing industry, the suspension on night fishing has been deferred from 4th August to 30 November 2020. Turning to the water subsector, regular water monitoring through sampling and purification are important activities for access to clean water. The Department of Water Resources has intensified such activities through support from development partners and partner institutions. Under the government of the Gambia and UNICEF Country Program of Cooperation, support is extended to schools and health facilities. Sanitation facilities have been provided for 5 schools and water supply systems for 6 lower and upper basic schools across 4 regions of the country. In addition, construction and rehabilitation of water supply systems in 5 health facilities and provision of adequate sanitation facilities for the health facilities in Basse and Diago has been accomplished. Madam Speaker, the Department of Water Resources, in partnership with UNICEF, has started the process of procuring essential substances and equipment, including water storage facilities, to improve on water testing, purification and distribution. This will improve water supply and sanitation activities, particularly in rural communities. Earlier this year, in collaboration with other stakeholders, the ministry handed over 27 solar-powered water supply systems within the 5 regions of the country. 47 communities with a combined population of 50,000 rural dwellers now benefits from this project. This was achieved through the Saudi Sahelian Project Phase 5. Youth and sports. Madam Speaker, my government attaches special importance to the youth and sports sector. In this regard, the validated youth policy 2019-2028 will soon guide the development programs for Gambian youth. The National Sport Policy 2010-2019 and the Strategic Plan 2015-2019, which were the main policy instruments for the youth and sports sector, now are the focus of a terminal review, leading to the development of successor frameworks. In support of the sector, the government has approved the Youth and Sport Development Levy to generate a responsive development roadmap linked to the NDP. It is planned that a compulsory national youth service targeting fresh university graduates will be implemented this year. The Youth and Sport Development Fund will be launched, and program implementation will begin whenever the threat of the pandemic subsides. Madam Speaker, the National Youth Service Scheme was able to recruit 602 youth. All of them have been placed for skill acquisition in various areas. Most of them were either employed or are self-employed. Over 150 youth are now on placement at various skill centers or other institutions. Aside from other significant programs, the PIA has successfully implemented the Community Development Initiative in 35 communities across the regions. 2,422 youth participated in the award program, and 699 people have completed their awards. From February 2015 to date, through the Gambia Somha Initiative project, about business and value addition. The indication is that they have either been engaged or are self-employed. In the area of sports, the Gambia has been doing very well in various international events. Once the threat of the pandemic ends, government's encouragement and support to step up sports and recreation will resume. Connected to this, in an endeavor to expand accommodation for both the tourist and sport industries, the sector is working towards upgrading the Friendship Hostel to a 3-star hotel at an estimated cost of $35 million. To update their policy instruments, the Ministry of Youth and Sports will formulate a national sports policy for 2020-2029 and a strategic plan. Once developed, they will be brought before this august body for approval. Arts, tourism and culture, Madam Speaker. Since the change of government in 2017, the arts and culture subsectors have been boosted in relation to participation and investment. I am happy to report that in February 2020, the Gambia submitted its periodic report on the UNESCO 2008 Convention on Cultural Expression, which the Gambia signed in 2011. The report was adopted by the UNESCO subcommittee on the convention. The door is now open for the Gambia creative industries to benefit from the UNESCO International Fund for Cultural Diversity. In the year under review, the National Council for Arts and Culture benefited from and successfully executed a grant from UNESCO country participation program to train 24 Gambian youths on entrepreneurship in the creative industries. To further my government's policy to promote rural and ecotourism plans are underway to construct a 40-bedroom, 4-star eco-lodge at Fort Bullen on the North Bank. This will be the first of its kind in rural Gambia. The Gambia Tourism Board intends to construct 4 similar facilities in each region. These facilities are expected to create job opportunities to the rural youth and trigger in-country tourism. Let me add that through the European Union-funded Youth Empowerment Project YEP, a 3-year project on youth and the creative industries has been launched to facilitate capacity building and funding for youth who are actively in the media arts, fashion, music, and audio-visual enterprises. The project is planned to begin later this year. When all these programs are linked with those mentioned earlier, it will become evident that the government is serious about addressing the plight of our youth, especially by reducing unemployment. We encourage the youth to make the most of these opportunities. Higher education, research, science, and technology, Madam Speaker. The tertiary and higher education sector is focused on its mandate of human capital development, most particularly through training, research, and education at tertiary and higher levels. Accordingly, the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology currently sponsors 1,061 students in the University of the Gambia. 31% of them are female. 600 more students are sponsored at the Gambia Technical Training Institute, GDTI, the Gambia College, and the Management Development Institute, MDI. Additionally, over 680 students are on studies abroad through hours granted by various countries, such as the People's Republic of China, Cuba, India, Malaysia, and Morocco. We are thankful to all the countries, institutions, and organizations that continue to award scholarships to Gambian students. At present, the Ministry of Higher Education is closely supervising the ongoing construction of the University of the Gambia Faraba Banta campus. At the same time, efforts are being made to continue works for the establishment of the Nemban Skill Center under the proposed program of one technical and vocational education and training center in each administrative region. Through this program, the refurbished Julangel Skills Center will continue offering classes to the community of URR. In the LRR, the refurbished Mansakongo GTTI Annex continues to deliver related courses. In a bid to transforming the tertiary and higher education sector for the provision of high-quality education and training, 4 bills will be submitted for tabling by this August Assembly. These are the Gambia University of Science, Engineering and Technology Bill 2020, the National Accreditation and Quality Assurance Authority Bill 2020, the University of the Gambia Bill 2020, and the Gambia Institute for Public Administration and Management Bill 2020. These bills spell out arrangements to transform GTTI MDI into degree awarding institution. Through the arrangements, a variety of new courses will be offered, with TVET accorded more attention to address the skills gap within the Gambian workforce. The respective schools of the Gambia College will be indexed into the University of the Gambia, and teachers will be trained from diploma to higher levels. Also finalized is the 2020-2024 tertiary and higher education sector strategic plan. The plan caters for educational continuity with contingency measures for unforeseen circumstances. Last but not the least, my government has initiated a stimulus package for Gambia government-sponsored and non-sponsored students studying abroad. It is a contribution towards their sustenance during these difficult times. In collaboration with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology is administering this package on behalf of government. Basic and secondary education, Madam Speaker. I will focus on the pandemic to lament how it has undermined efforts to educate our children. As we all know, schools were closed nationwide for months, which directly affected about 674,300 children. The loss of instructional hours arising from this threatens the attainment of the annual target of 880 hours of instruction time. We applaud the sector for intervening to keep the students at home and delivering lessons on radio, television, and other social media platforms. In particular, we commend the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, together with the Gambia Teachers Union and partners, for providing about 500 solar-powered transistor radio sets to deprived households in URR, CRR, LRR, and NBR. This has enabled children in those households to follow lessons delivered for them. It is regrettable that the national assessment test could not be conducted this year due to the pandemic, since the targeted grades were not in school. However, it is gratifying to indicate that the Gambia Basic Education Certificate Examination and the West African Senior Secondary Certificate Examination has been conducted successfully. Failure to have conducted these terminal examinations would have had serious implications for transition at the basic and secondary school levels. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to recover the lost time, the basic and secondary education sector is considering the extension of time spent in school, stepping up double shift arrangements, intensifying and extending lessons for all the grades, rescheduling examinations, and adjusting curriculum delivery schemes. We thank the World Bank, UNICEF, WFP, MRC Holland Foundation, GTU, the local education group, and all other partners, groups and individuals for their support to the education sector. Transport works and infrastructure. Madam Speaker, I will begin on a high note to state that during the period under review, important road and building projects in the North Bank region and the Greater Banjul area were completed and inaugurated as covered by the media. The remaining projects embarked upon are progressing very well, except that their completion dates will change as most contractors have scaled down their work schedules. Turning to the transport subsector, it is interesting that the port of Banjul, registered growth during the first quarter of 2020 compared to the corresponding period of 2019. The volume of cargo handled during this period increased by 8.3% to 814,693 metric tons. Container volumes increased by 5.4% from 32,389 in 2019 to 34,230 in 2020. However, due to the general decline in trading activities, container delivery in terms of daily gate output is lower than the average of 200. The closure of the Trans-Gambia ferry services and the scaling down of ferry services have severely affected revenue generation, with up to 60% loss in daily collection. It must be observed that the real impact of the lockdown is likely to be felt later. Until now, this subsector has a remarkable revenue, earner. Madam Speaker, the Maritime Division has registered a big drop in revenue collection when compared to the fourth quarter of 2019. Revenue collected from licensing fees dropped from $2.4 million during the fourth quarter of 2019 to $1.5 million in the first quarter of 2020. Another setback on revenue collection is the stoppage of the levy on freight. Overall, revenue and freight levy dropped by $300,000 from approximately $5 million during the fourth quarter of 2019. The global impact for the first quarter of 2020 is about $5,121,000, and this difference is likely to increase in the months ahead. The decline in tours and travels has slowed down the aviation industry. The industry is experiencing huge revenue loss, which may persist until November 2020. The Gambia International Airlines alone is projected to make a total loss of $5.6 million by October 2020. To sum it up, COVID-19 has disrupted the operations and services of the transport, works and infrastructure sector, which will surely have a serious negative impact on the economy. Health, Madam Speaker. My government, through the Ministry of Health, remains steadfast and dedicated to providing affordable and quality health care services, particularly in times of hardship or calamities. Reacting to the coronavirus pandemic, for example, the Ministry of Health developed a comprehensive preparedness and response plan. It focuses, among other areas, on scaling up and strengthening support, coordination, surveillance, case management, communication, and logistics. With support from the Global Fund, the National Public Health Laboratory has been refurbished and upgraded to a biological safety level 3 laboratory. Now it tests for COVID-19, which was done in the past solely by the Medical Research Council, Gambia. The former Demban Clinic and Sanatorium are ready for use as centers to treat COVID-19 patients, if necessary. I must add that plans are underway to construct 8 permanent treatment centers and refurbish other isolation centers across the country. Also, with support from the World Bank, a new National Emergency Treatment Center and a training center will be established to respond to emergency cases. Madam Speaker, in line with the National Health Financing Policy 2017-2030 and the National Health Financing Strategy Plan 2018-2024, the introduction of a national health insurance scheme for the first time in this country is at an advanced stage. The draft bill on the scheme is ready for review by Cabinet, focusing attention on other legal frameworks. The National Health Policy 2012-2020 and the National Health Sector Strategy Plan 2014-2020 will expire this year. Consequently, a new health policy and strategy plan will be developed for the sector. On maternal and child health services, my government is committed to the reduction of under 5 and maternal mortality. In the interim, significant gains have been registered recently for both infant mortality and under 5 mortality. Equally, deliveries conducted by skilled birth attendants in health facilities have increased. The Gambia is determined to provide free immunization services to all children in the country. As evidence, this year my government contributed $32 million towards immunization services. Madam Speaker, members of this August Assembly, the Gambia is one of the few countries in Africa that have successfully piloted the use of the HPV vaccine. The vaccine reduces the risk factors of girls and women from contracting HPV, which has a strong link with the deadly cervical cancer. As part of efforts to implement the concept of primary health care in the country and to strengthen healthcare services at the basic level, primary health care villages have increased by 12% from 634 to 722. Our collaboration with Riders for Health has been very useful in the realization of these successes, noting that they have procured a fleet of new ambulances, motorcycles, and other vehicles for the health sector. While appreciating this partnership, I thank all the operatives within the sector, including MRC Gambia, for risking their lives to serve as foot soldiers against the deadly coronavirus. Thank you all for the noble sacrifice. Justice, Madam Speaker, the Gambia remains committed to its promise and desire of upholding good governance, democracy, the rule of law, and respect for human rights. In this direction, our plan was to complete the building blocks of the legal sector reform agenda in 2020. We regret, however, due to the advent of COVID-19, delaying the finalization of the legislative reform is unavoidable. Consistent with the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission Act, the TRRC is on course to completing a 2-year mandate by the end of 2020. In January 2020, the Commission submitted their interim report to the government, highlighting the activities they undertook in their 4th year of operations. They have promised to complete their work as scheduled. In March 2020, the Constitutional Review Commission submitted the final draft constitution. The new Constitution Bill 2020 was gazetted and tabled before the National Assembly after the 3-month period stipulated by law. Following the tabling of the Anti-Corruption Bill at the National Assembly, we expect that it will be enacted during this legislative session. In consequence, the first ever National Anti-Corruption Commission is expected to be established before the end of 2020. The pandemic has prevented the enactment of a number of bills, but to complete the legislative reform started in 2017, 17 bills are ready for enactment during this legislative year. They include 12 amendment bills, the Skin Bleaching Prohibition and Repeal Bill 2020, and 4 new bills. These are the Criminal Offences Bill 2020, the Criminal Procedure Bill 2020, the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Bill 2020, and the International Crimes Bill 2020. Madam Speaker, over the years, my government embarked on the task of restoring confidence in the judiciary and safeguarding speedy dispensation of justice in the country. To realize these objectives, we have succeeded in staffing the high courts adequately. Through the Office of the Chief Justice, for instance, the government appointed additional judges during the period under review. Most of them are Gambians. This is a result of our resolve to staff the courts with competent Gambians. Following the measures enforced to prevent coronavirus infection, it was necessary to suspend court proceedings throughout the country. Upon resuming work, the courts had to scale down sittings. However, to speed up justice delivery, 2 virtual courts were set up in the High Court to deal with applications for bail and other urgent matters. We thank the UNDP for supporting this initiative. It is planned that the use of ICT will be rolled out to the magistrate courts as a permanent feature to improve efficiency. A new High Court now operates at Mile 7, Bakau. This new facility accommodates a judge of the High Court and staff. Sessions have already begun, bringing justice closer to the people. Another High Court operates within the Bundu Magistrate Court premises, with a judge presiding over cases there. Further still, a resident of High Court judge in the URR presides over cases in CRR, LRR, and NBR. The purpose is to facilitate speedy disposal of cases in the rural area. Information and communication infrastructure. Madam Speaker, COVID-19 has affected the ICT sector equally hard, leading to program and project implementation delays. By extension, it has negatively impacted on business and revenue flow for state-owned enterprises. Specific to the Ministry of Information and Communication Infrastructure, the consultancy for the formulation of the ICT for Development Master Plan scheduled for completion by end June 2020 is still pending. Also, the government-wide area network project, which is intended to provide a reliable platform for intra-government communications, was scheduled for completion in the first quarter of 2020. This important project is now set for completion by December 2020. As part of regional efforts to strengthen cybersecurity, the Ministry has secured funds from the ECOWAS Commission and the Organized Crime West African Response on Cybercrime to roll out a digital lab for the Gambia Police Force. Within the country, the Gambia Computer Incident Response Team has been established to deal with internal cybersecurity-related threats. The migration from analog to digital broadcasting also had to be halted after the successful launch of the first phase in February 2020. This hindered the completion of the project in the second quarter of 2020. Turning attention to GAMTEL, implementation of their turnaround strategy has encountered delays, thus constraining the company's revenue flow. By the same token, GAMCEL revenue marked a significant decline in the first quarter of 2020. This has affected efforts to upgrade GAMCEL's network to 4G. Although works are ongoing, completion of this project is now scheduled for the first quarter of 2021 instead of December 2020. GAMPOS also experienced significant revenue decline from sale of stamps. In addition, commissions received from post-money transfer have plunged, as these depend largely on remittances from the diaspora. This meant that GAMPOS had to struggle with meeting their operational costs, including the payment of salaries. However, government intervention through the Supplementary Appropriation Bill has helped to maintain salary payments. The Gambia Printing and Publishing Corporation has reported similar program implementation delays and insufficient supply of printing materials from suppliers. Added to these challenges are other operational setbacks and significant loss of revenue. In spite of the challenges, the Ministry of Information and Communication Infrastructure succeeded in validating several components of the ICT for Development Master Plan. The cybersecurity and broadband policies and their accompanying strategies, as well as components of ICT for development policy. To strengthen the e-government program, the Ministry has successfully completed works on the second phase of the project on fiber to ministries, departments, and agencies. This is another important initiative to eventually establish a single government-wide area network. The arrangements include enhancing digital solutions for COVID-19 response and mitigating through the digital health response mechanism. Finally, with support from the World Bank, work is in progress to migrate from the e-government data center to the private cloud data center of the National Broadband Network. Women, Children and Social Welfare. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Women, Children and Social Welfare has embarked on using integrated approaches and establishing new solutions to advance gender equity and equality, reinforce social protection systems, promote child protection, and importantly, create social safety nets for persons with disabilities. The pandemic has certainly impacted negatively on the sector's projects and programs, resulting in low implementation rates. In this connection, with the support from the UN agencies, the Ministry conducted a study on the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 on women and girls. The key findings indicate that some women are at risk of facing threats to their safety and freedom rights due to movement restrictions, thus increasing their confinement with their abusers. The pandemic also threatens access to reproductive and child health care. As the number of COVID-19 cases continue to increase, concerns are growing about the pandemic's immediate and long-term effects on certain demographics, especially on women, children, the youth, and on skilled workers. Madam Speaker, in partnership with the Office of the First Lady, the Ministry of Women and Social Welfare joined the battle against the pandemic by providing sanitary items, rice to 8 markets, 200 communities, the Gambia Prisons Department, Tanka Tanka, 5 chronic learning centers, Majilis, and the Gambia Federation for Persons with Disabilities. In progress is the construction of a solar-powered borehole for the Bakote Shelter for Children and the Elderly, implemented through the PAPEF project, and number of under the purview of the ministry. As this is a new ministry, allow me to observe that the staff successfully provided food items to 1,000 vulnerable households with children in the West Coast, North Bank, and Central River regions. To crown it all, they were able to reunite 146 children from Senegal with their families in the Gambia. Department of Strategic Policy and Delivery, Madam Speaker. The recently restructured Department of Strategic Policy and Delivery, DSPD, under the Office of the President, is the technical arm of the office. It became fully operational in October 2019 and provides outputs, inputs, and advice for the formulation and analysis of public policies and programs. It also worked towards speeding up and coordinating delivery of quality projects for the citizenry. Within this span of time, the DSPD mooted and supported the creation of the National Economic Council, which I chair, and participates in the quarterly National Business Council meetings chaired by Her Excellency the Vice President. The Business Council provides a platform for dialogue between government and the private sector. Acting on behalf of my office, the DSPD is the interface between my government and the United Nations system pertaining to interventions under the UN Development Assistance Framework ending 2021. Together with UNDP, the department initiated the Program for Accelerated Community Development. This is an articulation and intervention of the 4 presidential priorities of access to potable water, rural access roads, rural electrification, and food security support, entailing provision of labor-saving machines. The project strives to promote inclusive development by bringing basic socio-economic services to the rural population, especially those in hard-to-reach communities. It is a $5 million project. The financing agreement was signed with UNDP in April 2020 to formally kickstart implementation. The Policy Analysis Unit of the department provides strategic support to MDAs in the area of public policy formulation and gives technical support to Cabinet and the National COVID-19 Committee on Government Strategic Response to the Pandemic. Madam Speaker, the DSPD has launched 2 flagship publications to share analytical reports and policy notes with MDAs and development partners. The overarching goal of this initiative is to promote evidence-based, effective and transparent policy development and application. This aside, the department supports data analysis, exercise and generation of simulation models to inform decision-making. Such support contributed to the adoption of sustainable responses among a range of other options in the fight against COVID-19 in the country. Recently, the department was tasked to work with the Gambia OIC Secretariat to appraise the country's state of preparedness and progress towards hosting the 2020 OIC Summit and identify the existing financing gaps requiring attention. We await the report on this exercise. Concluding remarks, Madam Speaker. Over the past 3 years, my government has systematically addressed the unfavorable state of affairs we found in the country when we came into office. We have productively reconnected the Gambia with the global community. In the process, we have paid undivided attention on infrastructure development, energy, governance, and legal matters, institutional reform and strengthening, and amid a strong determination to guarantee and sustain lives and livelihoods. 2020 and 2021 would have seen the boosting of all these achievements and wrapping up of the NDP programs and activities in readiness for the Third Republic. Unfortunately, these are moments of uncertainty, as we cannot predict how the pandemic will evolve. But we hope for revival after this bitter experience. Meanwhile, the lessons to learn from this pandemic are clear. It has brought about a new social order that calls for discipline, collective action, determination, and accepting reality as it is. The indication is that we are in a health, economic, and social crisis that will linger on into the future, and a situation that we may have to live with. It poses challenges to contend with, not only with resources, but also with all the courage and energy we can muster. In the face of all this, my government maintains that survival, lives, and livelihoods come first. In other words, we rank the people higher than anything else. I encourage all Gambians to remain calm, focused, and dedicated to making a positive difference in the welfare of the nation. These are moments to build on our resilience in order to achieve our noble aspirations. Like other nations, the pandemic has struck the country. Lives have been lost, and social life is no longer what it used to be. There are fears and concerns about our well-being, and most families are worried about the survival chances of their dear ones, especially the elderly and other vulnerable groups. I convey heartfelt condolences to all the bereaved families, and I pray that all the departed souls rest in eternal peace. We must accept that we need to be more mindful of what we do, where we go, and how we behave and interact. The situation calls for transforming our fears and faith into strength, protecting ourselves with all the precautionary measures and resolutions, while hoping for better days ahead. With the wisdom that has come with this immense crisis, let us unite closely and contribute productively to our well-being in our various ways, as individuals, organizations, institutions, and as a government, a nation, and a people bound by a common heritage. The pandemic has taught us the need to cultivate a new culture of cleanliness, a new social order of living in harmony as human beings, a new political vision of working together, and a new way of embracing solidarity for our collective safety and survival. Let us redefine our roles and development paths against the realities of the times. As we meet here, millions of people have already been infected with the coronavirus. Hundreds of thousands have already died, and more are dying as a result of COVID-19. Madam Speaker, in spite of this dim picture, we will not be distracted, nor shall we relent. The pandemic will neither undermine our vision, nor the resolve to direct our energies and resources for the development and welfare of the Gambian citizens. For us, life, rights, and happiness for every human being matter above any other agenda. As we paddle on, Madam Speaker, we cannot allow our attention and energy to be diverted to issues that have no cultural or religious value, nor any significance to contribute to advancement of our nation. I would like to draw the curtain on recent debates about the rights of people with different sexual orientations. Let me emphasize that our partnership with our development partners is based purely on mutual respect for the advancement of our people. At this juncture, let me reiterate my appreciation and gratitude to the CRC for submitting the draft constitution within the specified time frame. The draft copy has gone through the required processes and was tabled recently by this August Assembly to allow for the remaining phases of finalizing and adopting the new constitution. Madam Speaker, I assure all Gambians that my government is determined that the general elections will be conducted in 2021 as scheduled. My conviction is that whatever our position or belief may be, we should always concede to the national interest and forego selfishness. On behalf of the entire nation, I thank all civil and public servants, the security service personnel, all commission members, friendly nation, development partners, organizations, groups and individuals, both within the country and outside, as well as all Gambians for their contribution to our successes during the past year. We are in no less measure grateful to all those who continue to support us, especially in sustaining our fight against the coronavirus. Madam Speaker, honorable members of this August Assembly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wish this August Assembly very fruitful deliberations during the year, and I pray that whatever we do, may it be in the best interest of the nation. I wish, with these remarks, I pray that Allah bless us, guide us, and protect us. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that address. May I call on any honorable member for a seconder? Let me call on Sabah Sayal, honorable member for Sabah Sayal.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that this Assembly do consider the motion on the State of the Nation address delivered by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Mr. Adama Barrow. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Now, honorable members, the consideration and debate proper on the motion so tabled will now be adjourned for Monday, the 21st of September, 2020, to give honorable members ample time to digest the said address. But before I adjourn the sitting, please allow me, on behalf of both sides of this August Assembly, and indeed on my own behalf, to once more thank His Excellency, the President of the Republic, for his well-delivered State of the Nation address. Of course, it is a statutory duty, but you will all agree with me that the address deserves commendation for the manner in which it was delivered. The address has indeed outlined the conditions of the Gambia, the policies of the government, and the administration of the state. This Assembly will therefore, in the next few days, reflect and debate on the policy statement so well delivered here in this August Assembly. The statement will also give honorable members an opportunity to reflect on the achievements and challenges we face as a nation and the urgent need for national unity, peace, stability, especially amid COVID-19, as stated by the President. As people's representatives, we are charged to do our best to ensure that the policies and programs outlined in His Excellency's address are thoroughly scrutinized and debated with due diligence. It is also important for us to have a clear understanding of the government's policies, development programs, and aspirations. This will provide the National Assembly and its various committees with the tools necessary to perform its legislative and oversight functions. And on that note, Your Excellency, Mr. President, I thank you once more for addressing this Assembly. And in the same vein, I wish to express thanks and gratitude to Her Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic, Your Excellencies, former Vice Presidents, my Lord the Chief Justice, former Honorable Speakers, Honorable Ministers herein present, Honorable Members of this August Assembly, Lord Mayors and Regional Governors, leaders of all political parties, service chiefs, the permanent secretaries, managing directors, venerable religious leaders, the press and the protocol teams, all distinguished invited guests for gracing this solemn occasion in the calendar of the National Assembly. By extension, on behalf of both sides of the August Assembly, I also wish to register our gratitude to all Gambians, that is our electorates, both within and in the diaspora, for the support and collaboration in our collective drive towards nation building. To my honorable colleagues of the National Assembly, I want to reiterate that nation building is an enormous task. And as a key stakeholder in the process, I pray that our deeds and actions be guided by justice and conscience towards the common good of all. In the same vein, I also wish to thank the Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, the Office of the Clerk, the Task Force, and all those who in various ways contributed immensely towards making this day a success. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless and guide us all. But before I put the question, may I kindly remind all guests to remain seated to allow His Excellency the President to take leave of the chambers, to be followed by Her Excellency the Vice President and others. And on that note, I will now put the question. Be it resolved that this August Assembly do stand adjourned till Monday, the 21st of September, 2020. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. The Assembly now stands adjourned till Monday, the 21st of September, 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt. I thank you all for your attention. Please can we allow His Excellency the President. Thank you.
Welcome back, guys. We've just witnessed the speech of the President, basically addressing the nation as it is done annually. He has talked on various sectors of the economy today, which I will go through with our editor-in-chief here, Lamin Jai. Lamin, what do you make of this speech?
Nothing. The only difference that I could pick from the President's speech today compared to the other speeches that he's given here has to do with the fact that, well, what everyone expected was what he did was to center his speech around the coronavirus pandemic. In almost every sector that he addressed, he did talk about coronavirus and how it impacted that particular sector. So I see comments have started coming. People have already started reacting.
Yes.
You have people that are not impressed by the President's speech there. They think he could have
Some
done
people
better.
think that some of the things that he mentioned are too technical and not actually what represents the reality on the ground.
Yes, for example, youth unemployment, for example, employment. The President is saying, arguing that there has been a marked improvement. But you have people out who are saying, but where is he getting these statistics from? These figures from. So those are things he went into technical issues that really the layman would struggle to understand, to comprehend really. You can see the ministers have started leaving now. Yes. The session is all over. On Monday, the Assembly members will convene and then they will go through the statement there or the speech there. A very long speech. But someone, like I said, one expected the president. At the tail end of his statement, his speech, he did talk about the coronavirus pandemic and what it has taught us, some of the things it has taught us, the issue of solidarity, the issue of collective survival. So we will move around and then try to see, and then try to see if we can talk to some people who are here. Actually, I see the former vice president and leader of the opposition UDP, who is here in the National Assembly. Honorable, thank you very much for speaking to the Fado Network there. We would just like to just get a word or two from you regarding the president's speech. What do you make of it?
Well, one important I make of it is fulfilling the constitutional requirement that's abiding by the Constitution. And of course, my view is that it appears to be more of a speech or deliberations on the COVID-19 coronavirus. I think that is all. The whole speech is about that. It's a sermon on coronavirus.
But are you impressed about this speech at all? These are unprecedented times. The country is going through a crisis.
Well, these are unprecedented times. But you see, the speech is not different. It's not different from the previous ones. And I'm sure when you look at the budget, last budget, you see that it's not very different from it. And I'm sure in December, when the minister presents his budget, it's not going to be very different from this. I think really we realize that the coronavirus has caused a lot of destruction. I mean, it has delayed a lot of things, but then I would have thought that with all these happenings, the catastrophic effect of the coronavirus, we would have come with new thinking. And in fact, I would have thought that, we would, really approach this with a great pessimism that the coronavirus is here, is going to be dreadful, but then, the measures that we are going to take to combat it will put us in a better position. I think that would have been, that's what I thought.
Finally, one thing the president made crystal clear has to do with elections. He said his government is determined to ensuring that election takes place next year. What do you have to say about that as a political leader?
Well, I mean, we do not expect him to say anything other than that. After all, in 1982, elections were held in this country under a state of public emergency, although the public emergency might be different, but there was a state of public emergency which had affected freedom of assembly, and so forth. So it's not, for me, it's not a surprise, and we didn't expect him to say anything different.
Honorable, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Sergio, that's the leader of the opposition, United Democratic.
As we can see, Lamin is trying to talk to some of the dignitaries here, and we have Yakumba Jaite here, who's a National Assembly member. That's her person, and then
and centering it on the coronavirus pandemic.
Yes. That's
and as Minister of Health, we'd like to speak to you about what you make of the president's speech there.
Well, I think the president's speech was in the sense that let's maintain social distancing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think it was a great speech. You had, what he mentioned with regards to the impact of the COVID-19 on all sectors of the government and of all sectors of governance. Because COVID-19, the pandemic, the impact already, but of course the president went ahead to elaborate in detail how it has impacted education, how it has impacted agriculture, finance, and every other thing. But we are equally delighted in the sense that he did mention the efforts of the people who are at the forefront of dealing with this pandemic, the health workers, the partners who all contributed to ensure that the people of this country are taken care of.
So what do you have to say about the fact that the government is not doing enough in terms of the response? Millions and millions of dollars have been spent on the response effort there. Do you think your government has done enough in terms of arresting this problem, this crisis?
Of course, you know the government has done its best. And when you say the government has not done enough, I feel disappointed, because you have seen the impact. The fact that you are standing here and talking the way you are talking, because some people have been toiling behind the scene, sleepless nights, risking their lives for all us to be able to stand here like this. You have seen the efforts of the government. Millions have been spent and millions continue to be spent. This is how expensive managing a pandemic is. You have seen how it is in the rest of the world. You have seen big economies. You have seen areas, countries that have all the infrastructure before the pandemic, and you've seen what the pandemic has done to them. So I think in all fairness, this government has tried, our health workers have tried, the Ministry of Health has tried to make sure that the people are able to live a healthy life in this country. Of course, controlling the pandemic takes more than the performance of government, more than the input of government. Every individual has a role to play. It's an infectious disease that spreads. So if you, as a journalist, if I, as a public servant, we do not play our individual roles, that means we are not helping in the spread of the pandemic.
You just mentioned the individual roles there. As the country's health chief, we've seen the president chose not to wear a face mask. Someone in the chamber advised him to wear his face mask, but he turned a blind eye to that. He ignored it.
Didn't you see him wear a face mask before he got out?
Today he did it.
Were you there?
I saw him wearing it after.
Why didn't you comment on that? So your reason should have been, your question.
It is mandatory.
Your question, I would suggest, would have been, why did he choose to wear it at that time? You know when we say the face mask rules, and of course you did know also that there are quite some exceptions, conditions, which may warrant wearing the face mask or not wearing the face mask as time. There are those exceptions. There are people sometimes when they speak, and how long was that speech? It was a very long speech. So when some people speak with the face mask for that long, sometimes it creates challenges for them with regards to breathing and so on and so forth. So sometimes before people speculate, we need to know the reasons behind. Many of us do not speak that long, do you? Do you ever get to speak this long? No, I don't.
I do. Sometimes I'll be in the studio. I'll host a show for 3 hours.
So that is good. But at least you take breaks, because you host a show, you ask questions, and the people do most of the talking. But this one is on one individual talking. So that difference is there. So sometimes when we see things, it's good to know the reason before we speculate.
Honorable, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Much appreciated. That's
there with the Health Minister, Dr. Amadou Lamin Samate. We will still try to get more people to interview before we end this live feed today. But just to go over some of the things that the President talked about, some of his plans and some of his policies, something particularly to do with the economy of the Gambia. He said that the GDP of the country might be going, or will be going, from 6% to 2%, which is huge. And we've already seen the effect, particularly on certain sectors of the economy, like the tourism sector, where most of the employees are not effectively working right now. And now we are joined by the Secretary General and party leader of the PPP, Honorable Papa Njai. Welcome, Honorable.
Thank you, my good sister, and keep it up.
Thank you very much. You're welcome to the Fatu Network. Honorable, you've listened to the President outline his policies and his plans that he has for this country. What do you make of this SONA address?
I think for the first time, we see him touch a lot of different sectors, and that's encouraging. And the problem with us is not the policies and plans. It's actually how do we implement it. Is how do we implement them? How do we monitor them to make sure that what we say in our plans and our strategies are actually realized? And I would have wanted him to dilate a little bit more on discipline. And discipline is one of the biggest problems that I see that affects most of our implementation. How do we make sure that the policies that he outlined today will be followed by the ministers, by the different departments, so that we achieve what we want? And I wanted him to also talk about how do we live within our means? How do we make sure the national budget is able to use the limited resources for us to be able to achieve the priorities? He made a lot of statements which are good, but for me, he should have prioritized to say, okay, out of all these are my priority sectors that I really want to concentrate on because they're key, and I will push most of my resources in this sector so that I realize my vision or my short-term goals or some of the NDP targets. I've not seen that, but in general, it was a good deliberation, and now the works on the line ministries to implement them. But also, as Gambians, we should go back, listen to reread his policies, and if we have anything that we wanted to add onto it, we will be able to comment on it so that he listens to it.
He has mentioned so many things, and one of the things I think is appropriate for me to ask you is about youth and sports. But let's say youth and employment. He has said so many figures about how youth employment have grown in this country. But when you look at the reaction from the Gambian people, they are saying, where are you getting these figures from? This is not the reality on the ground. As someone who has worked with the youth so many times for a long time in this country, what do you make of that?
Again, like I said, we are good with policies, but when it comes to implementation of those policies, that's why we fail. For one, I know that a lot of youth are still unemployed. We have not been able to target the energy, the abundance of skills we have, of youth we have, to the output. What I mean by that is that by now, government should have identified these key sectors that we want to promote, like the productive sectors, the ITC, entrepreneurship, and get young people trained to go into those sectors. But not only do we train them, we have to guide them, support them, so that they're able to actually achieve their goals. We continue to see a lot of people being trained. After training, you get a certificate, what next? You sit at home. If you go and try and get a bank loan, it's almost impossible. He spoke about the year programs, they're good, but how do we, it's the house now, how do we make sure that those people are actually benefiting from the training? And one of the recommendations I would give to the president is that let us be a bit more, not selfish, but protectionist by giving them some of the contracts we have on the ground. I'll give an example. If you train somebody in agriculture, that's not enough. You should be able to give him land. You should be able to give him access to those seeds and everything else, so that the person goes and produce the produce. But also, we need to have a mechanism so that once he produces those goods, we are able to buy it off them. Because if not, it's going to be a problem. And that is something that I think he missed a little bit. The house. How do we get from the planning stage to implementation and seeing results? And it's not only honest. It's not only on him, but on all of us to come out, talk about it, and give recommendations so that we can move forward as a nation.
Thank you.
But youth and sports is very key. Sports, to me, is that we have to view it as a business. A business needs the human capital. It needs the raw material, but it needs the marketing of it so that we're able to go to the next level. We're promoting sports, we don't have enough stadium. We're promoting sports, you don't have enough trained PE teachers or qualified sport instructors to help those kids from as young as grade 5, 6 to be able to become professional sports person. So no matter how good your policies are, if we do not get those steps right, it's going to be a problem. But in general, it was a good presentation, and he just spoke about things in general, and it's now left to his ministers and his managers to implement those projects.
Thank you very much, Honorable Papanjai of the PPP. Before you go, I have to ambush you with this question. What is your position as far as the PPP is concerned? Now, a lot of people have seen the National Assembly member of Banjul, I'm not sure, South or something, Tumanjai, come out to say that she wants to basically lead the party. Now, where does that leave you? Is that an inside coup or something? Make us understand, please.
No, PPP is a democratic party. And we have this philosophy that everybody has a right to seek for any positions at elective Congress. And Tuma is just basically expressing a desire to lead the party. But of course, it will be done at the Congress. There's no internal coup, and it's just that we actually encourage people to challenge the leadership so that we are seen to be a democratic party, because I did the same 2 years ago, and I challenged Honorable Bibi Dabo, and the young people voted for me, and she thinks that she has an opportunity to contest in the next elective Congress, and it depends on the voters, and if they believe she's the right person, they will vote for her. But for now, I'm the leader of the party, and like I said during the Congress, that my targets are restructuring the party from within, making sure that the young people who are not aware of PPP begin to look at PPP and start joining us. And alhamdulillah, we have had a lot of influx of young people coming to join the party, and that's a good thing. Those are my targets. Anything beyond that is basically moving to the next level, which is now coming up with policies and programs which once we sell it to the governments through our manifesto, people vote us in the next elections. And I believe that that's a stage for everything. For the last 2 years, we've been challenged by having to fight a lot of battles. The first battle we had to fight was that we had to fight the legal court case with Bibi Dabo, and that consumed a lot of time. We also had to fight with the general perception of people to say that PPP is a dead party. We also had to fight with the notion that Papanjai cannot load PPP, and we had to fight also re-educating people that the negative messaging that the former government did on PPP, we had to demystify that. So for the last 2 years, we've been fighting to rebrand PPP again. And I think now we've emerged from that rebranding, and now people are beginning to talk about PPP, and we're getting a lot of young people coming to join the PPP, and people are beginning to consider us as a party that has an opportunity. And before 2 years ago, nobody was talking about PPP, but now they are. So my target in making sure that the young people know about PPP, the people that have been painting PPP as a party of the old people, a party that doesn't have any relevance, that have demystified now, and now we move forward, and alhamdulillah, we're there, we're getting there.
And you are still the leader of the party,
yes,
just to be clear. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we are still here live at the National Assembly of the Gambia. Lamin?
Thank you.
The leader of the People's Progressive Party, the State of the Nation address there by President Adama Barrow. I have seen people reacting to really the president's speech there.
Oh,
I saw the likes of Dr. Ismail Assise, Modu Sabali, all writing about the president's speech. So let's see what Dr. Ismail Assise is saying. According to Dr. Ismail Assise, in his sona at Barrow president is blaming the COVID-19 pandemic for his accumulated failures, claiming he was on course to deliver widespread prosperity to Gambians when the virus struck. This is weak, as the seeds of his government's failure were sown well before the pandemic. So that's what Dr. Ismail Assise is arguing, saying that, well, the failures of Barrow's government has always been there well before the coronavirus pandemic started. I also saw Modu Sabali commented something very interesting, saying that the president read a dead text, a dead speech, if you like. So these are some, but there are interesting things that I was able to observe in this year's.
Lamin, not all the National Assembly members were present for this address.
Exactly, but I can see some were late because as soon as the president takes his seat, it becomes a problem for any other person to enter
right.
after the president. So I saw some of them were really struggling with trying to get into the chamber, but the security would not allow them. That's why they were not able. Some in fact entered, but they were not able to sit at their
designated seats.
Designated seats there. So that happened. But also this year's event took a completely different look, if you like, because you could see that members of the diplomatic community are not here. They did not come, meaning they have not. It is because of the coronavirus pandemic that is why they are not invited. It's a small subdued ceremony because of the pandemic. I think that is why that happened. But also we've seen some of the political leaders turn up. They sent in representatives. Basically that was it. Members of the public were not invited because of the pandemic there. So we managed to speak to a few people. Hussein Udabo, we spoke to him. We also spoke with the health minister there. So basically that was it from us. I think we will come to the end of the show. That's the live broadcast here at the National Assembly, the State of the Nation address there by President Adama Barrow. So on Monday, the National Assembly members will ponder, or they will discuss the president's speech there. They will tell, their representatives, they'll go out there and talk to them about the president's speech, and when they return, they will debate on it. So basically, pretty much, that is it from us.
Yes, thank you very much, guys, for watching, and do join us. I think we'll be back again when the National Assembly members actually debate on the address of the president. So thank you very much, guys, for being with us, and bye for now.
Continue account. Worry no more. With AfriCell, the cholera credit just got way better.
Now you can continue your conversations with your loved ones. With the new cholera credit, you can now borrow up to $250 credit. Send a blank SMS to 152 to get your cholera credit and activate the service of your choice. For more info, please call 111.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
Watanbe, brought to you by AfriCell.
Be part of the amazing conversations with Gambia's greatest minds and personalities. Get ready to be entertained, inspired, and motivated on the Watanbe platform. Plus, stand a chance of winning the shopping of your life. Call or SMS 1010 for $3 is only to win cash prizes and a free shopping spree.
Join Watanbe live on GRTS and social media on Mondays and Fridays at 9 p.m. Kailin New Watan.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.